Reverend Kikanza encourages us to think about our UU values, our decisions, and our behaviors, especially with regards to voting, problem solving, parenting, and relationships. Doing this exercise for myself and looking at the 7 UU principles, I initially had 2 thoughts. The first one was that I agreed with each principle and that I am mostly adhering to them. The second thought was, could I do more? That became a scary exploration. Let's look. Principle 1, about inherent worth and dignity of every person. I never really think about this one. Maybe I just assume that it's okay, and if there were a problem, people would tell me. Of course, there have been nasty exceptions when I lost my temper. And then there's the issue of who is included in every person. Every person that I encounter, or countless others that I'm not into contact with, or choose not to be in contact with, but maybe should, varying from my old neighbor to all those in faraway places suffering from war. And thinking about the first principle, driving over here, I thought of Susan Scrimshaw. She was the pulpit host in March of 1994, the very first time I came to this church to check it out. And she said that if she walks into a room and there's someone she doesn't know and doesn't like, she goes up to that person and talks to them, and then usually ends up liking them. Now, I'd come to Los Angeles to do primal therapy, and I'd learned if you don't like someone, you start screaming. So I thought maybe I'll try that. So, and it worked. Principle 2, about justice, equity, and compassion. I'm not so sure about social justice and economic equity. From a world perspective, where there are 8 billion people, I'm obviously privileged, but I'm not giving half of my money to good causes. As to social justice, that depends on what counts. For 25 years, I volunteered in the Hollywood Center Free Clinic as a psychotherapist, the last 7 of which as clinical director, although I had some ulterior motives as well. I've been on the board of the Gay Therapist Organization in Los Angeles. I've not been in the street protesting, except for gay pride. By the way, with regards to voting, I'm not a citizen, I have a green card, so I cannot vote. I can vote in the Netherlands. However, in the Netherlands, we cannot vote in the election that's most important for us, President of the United States. Because the President of the United States has his finger on the nuclear codes, and we are in NATO, so we're a little scared sometimes. Oops. Principle 3 to 6, dealing with acceptance, spiritual growth, truth-seeking, democratic process, and world community. I completely agree with each of these, but I did not join a right relations group in 2017. Sounded a little bit, the title threw me off, but I would now join them. I pay a lot of attention to each of these principles, but currently I'm not an activist. In the past I was, especially with regards to gay rights. Principle 7, respect for the interdependent web of life. I've been keeping up with this since 1953, when I was only 6 years old. Flood water almost reached the 2nd floor of our house in the Netherlands, and many people drowned. We in the Netherlands pay a lot of attention to our dikes and worry if they will be high enough. As to myself, there's a lot more I could do than looking at our dikes and keeping up with the news, such as more actively seeking to reduce my carbon footprint. So what's the balance? From time to time I feel guilty, overwhelmed, and helpless. And I'm telling myself that there's only so much I can do. This is particularly true for the democratic processes in the world and the climate crisis. Then I tell myself that because I spent an hour a day keeping up with the news about democracy and climate and then fretting about it, at least I'm not practicing escapism. As a matter of fact, I joined UU because most people I met there shared my values and interests. So is my behavior in line with UU values? Some of the time, sure. Could I do more? Yes. And preparing for this call to worship has reminded me of that.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning. John Dewey said that learning doesn't take place in our experiences, that learning takes place as we reflect upon our experiences. This worship service is an opportunity for reflection. And so I light the chalice this morning in the spirit of reflection. I light the chalice inviting you to reflect on your values and your behavior and their alignment or misalignment. I light the chalice inviting you to reflect on the experiences that you have had so far this summer and what they might mean for you in your life and work in our UU community.
Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I'm Robbert Schalekamp. I go by the pronouns he/him, and I'm your worship associate for today. First of all, a special welcome to today's guest musician, Andrew Finn McGill. Andrew is a fiddler violinist from Asheville, North Carolina, where he was raised in the Unitarian Church. He specializes in jazz, traditional Irish and Brazilian music, and has been featured on TEDx, NPR, and MTV. He is a Fulbright Fellow. What is that? what do we say? TEDx. What is that? Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know everything. So. Oh, okay, big deal. He is a Fulbright Fellow, North Carolina Arts Council Fellow, and a South Arts Emerging Traditional Artist. He has agreed to sell some of his CDs in the courtyard after the service. We're delighted to have all of you present with us, wherever you are, here in the sanctuary, in our online sanctuary. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our community, you can find many ways to learn more about our community and become involved on our website. Please note that while we are still in the process of reopening for larger services and events, we are here in person, doing some things, like coffee after services, slightly differently, and also still holding many meetings and small groups gatherings online. Hey, and if anyone needs to use the restrooms, we have one located in the front and another one located in the cottage in the courtyard. The one in Forbes Hall is not accessible right now. We offer programs to serve the needs of our congregation and to be of service to the larger world, including broad religious exploration and personal development for people of all ages. We also join with other social justice advocates to work for justice and harmony of our world. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by creed or dogma, but is guided by 7 principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person and encourage an individual search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe that we are all connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs come from 6 sources that are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience, and ancient tradition. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation, diverse in backgrounds, identities, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We are united in our desire to create an inclusive, beloved community, to live the principles of our faith, and to serve the wider world. Whatever your beliefs or faith tradition, we invite you to help us build a community where together in our diversity we make covenant in love and justice. May you find comfort, camaraderie, and inspiration here. As we gather in this space and in our virtual spaces, we recognize that we are connected with one another through the winds that give air to all beings, and through the waters that move deep into the earth and up into the sky. We acknowledge that the ground beneath our feet is and always has been the home of indigenous peoples, many of whom have been forcibly removed to other lands. Come, let us worship together. Announcements. Dining for Dollars. Thanks to all who have paid for your Dining for Dollars events. However, some of you have not paid yet. A reminder, and apparently I was one of them, but we think it's a glitch. So, and I brought my checkbook for today. So, however, some of you have not paid yet. A reminder statement was sent out recently, and it is very easy to click on the checkout and pay by credit card. If this is impossible, then please mail a check to the office. Thank you. If you have questions, call or email. If you have questions, email auction@uusm.org. Another announcement. The Green Committee is meeting today after the service from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. You can learn about reducing greenhouse gas emissions and how to improve climate justice. Today, after the service, like every Sunday, you can help make lunches for bunches. The funding for that program needs to be replenished. You can donate online on the church website and choose Hunger Fund from the program support list. Our Soul College will be starting this Saturday, August 13. Our Soul College. What's the matter with me? Our Soul Collage will be starting this Saturday, August 13, in the Warren E. Matthews Conference Room in the cottage. Lastly, we have a new artist for our artist wall, Evelyn Meyer, who is known for her psychedelic works and has been creating art since the age of 3. Please see her work behind me in Forbes Hall after the service today. More information about events, such as our camp weekend in the Benview Pine in September, can be found in the email that is sent to all members every Thursday, as well as on the church website. Please rise in body or spirit and stay standing for our covenant.
Mic on. Hi. Thank you. It's good to be back. This is 323, Break Not the Circle. One second. Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken? Come, join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The question if someone has donations for the West Side Food Bank, you can bring them up now. And then, after that, Nathalie Kahn will present time for all ages. Step it down.
Good morning. Well, even though I don't see any children here, oh my God, hello. I know there must be children watching right now or will be watching later this rebroadcast. And in any case, my story today concerns all of us, but it does focus on the children. As you've probably gathered by now, we have as our theme this month ambiguity. And when I think of ambiguity, I think of the fact that we don't always come to a quick decision about things. We have to consider the options, and sometimes even we have to act with knowing all the details, although we do try to, make a list and look at all possibilities, even if some of them we know we're not going to act on. We want to consider everything. And that also means taking some risks. Now, for adults, a big decision might be changing your job, moving to another city, having to move from an apartment to a house, and these can be far-reaching, even have a lifelong impact on what you finally decide to do. And so we know about those decisions, and we base those on the best information we have on what we should and should not do. And for us in our UU church, we try to put our values into practice when we make these decisions. Children also make decisions, and they make them every day, even if they don't realize they're making them. Like an example might be, assuming your parents even give you this choice, do I play video games now, or do I do my homework first? Do I do my homework before dinner, or do I wait till after dinner? Do I play outside, or do I stay indoors? Things like that. And when you think about it, even though these are daily decisions, they have an impact for that day, but also they can have far-reaching impact about how you prioritize your life or how you measure your values and what's important to you. Now, I'm going to show you a picture, and this is a picture about another decision that had to be made last week. I was in Las Vegas at the Bellagio Hotel, and I was with my 8-year-old granddaughter, and I was there because it was a special night for her. I got tickets to Cirque du Soleil. We went to see O. And as exciting as that was, and as great an experience as that was, I have to tell you that we had to make a lot of decisions even before we got there. One of the most important decisions we had to make is what were we going to wear? And as you can see by the picture, this took a lot of thought. Adrienne tried on everything in her closet, and we accepted or rejected it on the basis of, was it too dressy, was it the right color, and all kinds of other things, what earrings would go with it, etc. And of course, I packed to go there, so I had fewer choices to make, but I did bring 2 things along. And as you can see, one of the things that I brought was a pink and white outfit, and you can also notice that the pretty dress she decided to wear was pink and white, because it was important for us to be color coordinated. And you think, oh, well, that's just silly. But I got to tell you, I think that she's going to remember that night for her whole life. And even after I'm gone, she's going to look at photos, or she's going to have it up here in her head, and she's going to remember that special night we had together and all of it, the great show we saw, the audience, the ambiance, and also what we were wearing. And I think that that also will have a long-lasting influence on her life even after I'm gone, and I'll be in her memory, and she'll be in the memory of that night long after I'm gone. So I think making decisions for children is every bit as important as it is for the rest of us.
please sing our song of blessing with us. You do not have to stand up. If you're following along in your hymnals, this is going to be verses 1 and 3 only. When the summer sun is shining over golden land and sea, and the flowers in the hedgerow welcome butterfly and bee, then my open heart is glowing, full of want for everyone, and I feel an inner beauty which reflects the summer sun. In the cool of summer evening, when the dancing insects play, and in garden, street, and meadow linger echoes of the day, then my heart is full of yearning, hopes and memories flood the whole of my being, reaching inwards to the corners of my soul.
Joys and sorrows. No one asked us to announce any joys or sorrows in their life this last week. If you want us to share your joys and sorrows, please email us at pastoralcare@uusm.org.
We had no joys and sorrows reported to the office this week, but I know that everyone carries some joy, some sorrows, some concerns in their heart, because we are part of community and we are part of the human condition. And so let us pause, reflecting on the things that bring us joy. If it's something small, like a well-organized, color-coordinated closet, a drawer that used to be called the junk drawer, but now has a name. This is a drawer for things that hold things together. The joys of having been away from church and work for a few weeks, a few days, having reconnected with family and friends, having been on a plane for the first time in 2 or 3 years, large joys and small. We rejoice at the wonderful music this church produces, that our music director is back, that Ryan is back, that we have this wonderful guest with us this morning. And then we think about those things for which we have great concerns. That diagnosis that you got because you decided to do the right thing and go to the doctor, you were fine until you went. And then they had to give you all this information that you would rather do without. Or the one who's in the hospital, and if they do get out, will never be the same. We are concerned for those who are traveling, who have traveled away from our hearts and our homes, and we wonder if they ever will return. And then there are those few that left finally, and we're glad they did. We are concerned for our world, for the votes that are coming up, for the elections that we can't vote in, but we can send a check to, for the the issues that are of such deep concern to us that most of the world just doesn't seem to care. We are concerned for this church. We are welcoming ourselves and one another back into the sanctuary. And what will it mean for us? What will it mean as we live into our future, as we reflect upon our history and legacy, as we look at the empty pews at those who aren't coming back, as we look at our budget to see what we need to offer and increase so that we can continue with the good work that has been done for so many decades here. So there are lots of things for which we can celebrate, for which we can mourn, for which we have concern, which make our hearts smile and sing. And so in this moment of silence, I invite you to reflect on your joys and concerns. Our reading this morning is from the Markula Center for Applied Ethics, which is housed at Santa Clara University here in California. This is what they say. If you're facing a difficult choice and asking yourself what you should do, you're making a decision that has to do with ethics. Ethics is about how people treat each other, how they build trustworthy organizations, how they create just societies. Almost any issue you can think of has an ethical dimension. On a personal level, you may need to decide the right thing to do for an aging parent. At work, you may be faced with conflicts where you are tempted to put your own interests ahead of your clients'. As a citizen, you often have to vote on initiatives that impact the rights of others. How can we make ethical decisions in these areas on a daily basis? The first step is to always identify the ethical issue, gather the relevant facts, and think about options. And so you ask yourself, which option produces the most good and the least harm? Which option best respects the rights of all who are affected? Which option best treats people equally, equitably, or fairly? Which option best serves the community as a whole, the common good? Which option leads me to act as the kind of person I want to be, a virtuous person? Considering all these concerns, which is your best option? Test your solution and reflect on how your decision turned out. And if you're lucky, you can reflect on that experience and do it again. Sometimes we only get one chance to make a tough decision and to act on an option. And that's the crux of ethical decisions. Sometimes you only get one shot at making the right one. So it's great to be back. It's great to be back in church. It's great to be back from my summer break. People have kept saying, oh, were you on vacation? Where are you going? Or where did you go? And no, it wasn't a vacation. It was a Sabbath break. It was a time for reflection and restoration. And it's something that I don't do enough. I'm not a traveler, so I didn't go anywhere. I'm not afraid of planes. I just prefer to be home, working in my studio. So what did I do? Not much. No mail, no email, no meetings, no presentations. I did sew a lot, and I had several studio dates. So one friend came to sew for a week, and I was very clear on the first day, I'm not cooking and I don't eat breakfast, so I don't even care about food until afternoon. And so she said, well, so I said, let's go to the store and we can get, I'll pay for it, whatever it is that you want to eat or cook, because she does like to cook way more than I do. She announced, well, I'm not cooking either. So we drank protein shakes and we went out to eat every single night. The other thing that I did that was new and interesting was serve as the cultural competence consultant for a theater production. My job was to help address the social justice issues that were raised by the content of the play, to help them tell the story accurately and authentically, not to harm the audience and not to trigger the cast and the crew. It was a world premiere, so we weren't trying to rewrite Shakespeare. So I got to work with the playwright and the director and the dramaturg. I read the book, I read the play, sent notes to the director, and sat in the theater for almost every rehearsal, watching the rehearsals and chatting with the cast and crew, and giving them an opportunity to talk with me, express their concerns that I could then relay to the director or the playwright. I was, and I continue to be impressed and inspired by their hard work of these actors, their work and their dedication to the craft. These men and women, most of whom had day jobs, rehearsed 3 or 4 nights a week for 5 hours every evening. They learned their lines. They drove for miles at night to and from the theater way in the bottom of Topanga Canyon. I learned a lot. One actor had been telling me about his fear of heights, and then the next night, he was on top of the roof on the set, and it wasn't a fake roof, it was like a real height of the house, and he was up there making a speech. So later I said, aren't you the one who said that they were afraid of heights? He said, yeah, that was me. I said, but you were up there on the roof. How? I didn't understand it. He said, that's the job. That's the job. And that, to me, was the perfect alignment of values and action. I'm the actor. I honor the craft. I do the job. No whining, no complaining, no vacillating, just do the job. Because the script was being refined as they rehearsed, the actors had some latitude with their lines. So I would hear things like the actor saying to the director, but she wouldn't say it like that. And the director would say, well, how would she say it? What would she say? And that was fun for me to watch, and sometimes I got to participate in those conversations. The intention and the goal was alignment, to make sure that the language was in alignment with the values and the message of the story. It seems to me that that is what most of us are trying to do in our lives. We're trying to put legs on lofty ideals, trying to put our feet firmly on the ground, to stand steady and confidently because we are who we say we are. No apologies, no excuses, no, well, that wasn't really me. Yeah, that was you. That was you being out of alignment with your values. Now, when I was a kid, I would hear adults say, do as I say, not as I do. And my judgmental adolescent self thought, well, they are a bunch of hypocrites. Why are they telling me to be a certain way and they're not even doing it? As an adult, I am more understanding and more defensive when someone calls me on my inconsistent behavior, on my doing something that I have said I don't value. So my response, of course, is sarcastic. Well, why are you surprised? I'm a work in progress. My values are aspirational. Believe what I say, not what I do. It's hard, especially when your audience, your public, whoever that is, thinks that you think you are perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about progressive perfection. It's about knowing your strengths and knowing when you'll need to stretch to get there and use your secondary skills instead of the things that you can do comfortably. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone into those tough ethical dilemmas. It's about knowing where your growing edges are and asking for help when you need it. It's about being clear about what you believe and what those beliefs look like in action. Now, in some Christian churches, every week the congregants repeat the Apostles' Creed or some other statement that reflects what they believe. Now, most people, if they don't know the Apostles' Creed, are familiar with the 10 Commandments. Some of you know the 613 commandments and laws that are part of the Judaic tradition, or the 5 pillars of Islam, or the precepts of Buddhism. Some of these laws are clear and practical and pragmatic. Don't do this, do this. Others, most of them, are open to interpretation, usually connected to the question, well, in this context, what are we supposed to do? It reminds me of a Gilbert and Sullivan song. The captain of the H.S. Pinafore is telling his people about his exemplary behavior, and after he extols his own virtues, saying he never does something, the chorus sings, never? And he replies, no, never. And the chorus asks again, never? And he says, well, hardly ever. It's a journey, this process of aligning values and behavior. It might seem easier to have 613 laws instead of 5 or 10, but each day we are challenged to put our values into action. No matter how many laws or principles we have, there will be new situations that challenge our understanding of them. Our UU principles are lofty, and they beg the question, well, what do you mean by the worth and dignity of every person? Every person? What do you mean by justice and compassion in human relations? Can justice be compassionate? What do you mean by free and responsible search for meaning? Is it really free? And what does it mean to be irresponsibly searching for meaning? See, each of us may have a different answer to these questions. This is what the practice of ethics invites us to do. What is the right thing to do in these circumstances? If our goal is creation of a beloved community, what are we required to do when someone hurts our feelings? When someone causes us harm? When someone threatens our friends and family? Reverend Jeremiah and I sit on the bioethics committee of UCLA Hospital. And we discuss in our meetings the question, what is the right thing to do in the hospital, in this time, with this person, with this patient, with this technology? We have to remind ourselves of the values that inform our decision, primarily to do no harm. And yet, when there's a clash between technology and humanity, or when what the family wants and what the clinicians recommend are at odds, we have to go back to the question, what is the right thing to do? What do our values look like in action with both feet on the ground? So this morning, I invite you to reflect on what you believe. What are your core values? What do you believe about people and animals and the earth, about justice and truth and compassion? If you didn't announce your values, would we be able to discern what they are just by watching the way you live? My work involves helping people and organizations align their values and their behavior, to put legs on those lofty statements of mission and values. For example, I worked with one agency and nonviolence was one of their core values. There was a computer consultant who was teaching them how to use new custom created software, and she kept saying, and then you hit the key, you hit the F key, and then you hit the control key, and then you hit the, and so the CEO said, excuse me, we are a nonviolent organization. We don't hit people or keys. The consultant said, but it's a computer. Of course you hit the keys. And she went right on. And then you hit this key, and then you hit that. The CEO interrupted again. Excuse me, maybe you need some help. So let's take a few minutes to brainstorm some alternatives to hitting the keys. We can touch the key. We can tap the key. We can click the key. We can press the key. We do not hit the keys. The consultant looked at her, thought she was really crazy, and kept right on. So at lunchtime, the CEO said, we will not be coming back after lunch. And during lunch, she fired the consultant and told the company that had created this software, if you want us to pay for it, send us someone who can teach us in a way that's in alignment with our values. And then she announced that afternoon to the rest of the team what had happened and why, so that they could reflect on that experience and reinforce the value of nonviolence. What does it look like on the ground? The value for nonviolence was fairly simple and straightforward, at least to that CEO and the people in that organization. But what happens when you're faced with doing bad things for good reasons? No one is all good or all bad, and I think that each of us could describe a situation when lying, cheating, or killing was justified. I learned long ago in a self-defense class that perpetrators don't deserve the truth. Perpetrators don't deserve your compassion. That was what was told to me as I was trying to find my fighting spirit. Well, I can't hit somebody. Well, they're trying to kill you, Kikanza, you better. See, so there are times when we have to prioritize our values. For example, when values clash, like the individual versus the communal, justice versus mercy, short-term versus long-term. If value-based decisions were easy decisions, there would be no churches, there would be no religions, there would be no ethics classes or social relations committees. We come together as community to clarify and to reinforce our values, because as human beings, we are called to align what we believe with what we do. Why? Because that is our job.
Offering. Our practice here at UUSM is to dedicate half of our non-pledge Sunday offering to organizations doing work in the world that advances our Unitarian Universalist principles. The other 50% of the offering is used to support the life of our church. This month, half of our Sunday offering will go to Didi Hurst Mental Health Services, a non-profit organization that has been serving those most in need and least able to pay for more than 75 years. Your support helps them provide high-quality mental health, substance abuse, and suicide prevention services to children and adults throughout Los Angeles and across the nation. To give a donation right now, you can send a text to 844-982-0209. You can enter, for instance, $20 GCC, that stands for Generous Congregation Contribution. Or you can enter, for instance, $20 SLF, that's a donation to the Spirit Level Fund that helps us with our technology. Or you enter 20 PLG for a pledge donation. Thank you so much for all that you give monetarily, and especially all that you give of yourselves to build our community.
Please rise in body or in spirit, and let's sing our closing hymn, When the Spirit Says Do. We're going to sing do, sing, dance, and then go back to doing. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 You gotta sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing, oh Lord. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. Spirit says sing, 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 Spirit says sing. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance, oh Lord. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. Spirit says dance, 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 Spirit says dance. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
Well, that was fun. I hadn't heard that one before, but I'm going to do that again. So, this service is over. The song is not. And our call to do what Spirit says do, our call to do what our values say do, that call continues. So go, my friends, go and do something that aligns your values with your spirit. Come back next week. Spend a little time in the courtyard before you leave as we rebuild this renewed community, as we're coming back together. Keep reading the website and the emails that you get so that you hear about the different activities that are going on. If you've got a great idea, let us know so that we can see what we can do to make that great idea happen. When is the choir coming back?
The choir is coming back on August 28th.
Woohoo!
Is
Yeah.
our water service.
Yes, absolutely.
It's going to be earlier this year. If you want to sing with the choir, you're welcome to join us. We are meeting that morning at 9:30, but we will also have a retreat that afternoon where we will be rehearsing for an upcoming concert from 1 to 4. So Sunday choir day. You're
Great.
welcome to join us. Please email me before you do.
Thanks. Andrew, thank you so much for sharing with us. Check him out on TEDx. It really is a big deal. Ryan, it's always, always a pleasure. Go now, my friends.